For those of you who know with certainty what the Alpha Legion's been up to ever since the end of the heresy, no you don't, stop lying, because even they don't know.
90% of the time, I have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
For me to sit here and say, oh, the things going on with the Alpha Legion are complicated, would be bordering on patronizing at this point. But even memes aside about, ooh, secrets and mysterious, it's really complicated. It was complicated during the heresy, and it's only gotten worse since then. This video is going to try, and I mean huge asterisks there, try to explain or rationalize what's been going on with the Alpha Legion in the current year as best as I can. This will require information from a few books, namely Sons of the Hydra by Rob Sanders, Shroud of Night by Andy Clark, Harrowmaster by Mike Brooks, and the Arcs of Omen series, as well as some minor spoilers for Beckwin Penitent by Dan Abnett. Yeah, when I said complicated, I meant complicated. It's almost as complicated as my erratic upload schedule, which is why you should subscribe and hit the notification bell, haha. Now before we dive into that, let's get some background information, but I'll try to keep it brief. Back during the Horus Heresy, the Alpha Legion seemed to have rebelled because Alpharius was arrogant, his methods had been heavily rebuked by his brothers, namely Rabute Gilliman, so on and so forth. Just the general reasons for siding with Horus that the other traitors could also ascribe to. But in reality, he had been contacted by agents of a mysterious Xenos organization called the Cabal. The Cabal existed to oppose chaos and eventually see to its ultimate destruction. They did this through the usage of foresight and clairvoyance called the Accurity. They predicted the Horus Heresy from the outset and had their agents inform Alpharius that if his legion sided with the Emperor would succeed, but be interred on the Golden Throne, and the galaxy would go into a state of decay for the next 10,000 years before ultimately leading to the victory of chaos and the death of all life in the galaxy over time. Which, like, come on, nah. But if they sided with Horus, he would win. However, some of that honorable warrior within Horus would still shine through, and he would end up instigating several internecine conflicts within humanity as a result of his guilt and shame, which would eventually lead to the death of the human race, but the galaxy itself would live on because the Chaos Gods would be starved of their main fuel once humanity died out. And funnily enough, as of The End in the Death Volume 1, we have proof that that was complete bullshit, basically, because if Horus won, he would have turned into the 5th Chaos God called the Dark King. Go watch my full in-depth review of that, it doesn't have views. The Alpha Legion was initially on board, but did eventually drop the Cabal's plan, and they set up contingencies to intervene at the end of the Siege of Terra in support of whichever side felt should be supported. I'll get into that later. But we all know how the heresy ends. Emperor's interred, Horus is dead, Traitor Legion scattered, and the Alpha Legion themselves, even though they didn't go into the Eye of Terror, they were broken at the Battle of Escador, where Omegon was allegedly killed by Gilliman. Yeah, bullshit, he was not. Omegon is absolutely alive. Alpharius, though, is dead. Now, which one really was Alpharius and which one was Omegon has been thrown into flux by the book Alpharius, Head of the Hydra, but I am getting a little off track. Ever since then, the Alpha Legion has constituted, in my opinion, the single least unified of the pre-heresy legions. In the present day, the Alpha Legion can be divided into 4 distinct groups. The first being what I will call the Old Alpha Legion. That being those Alpha Legions who are now traitors. Most of them are Heresy-era Marines, and whatever side they were on back during the Heresy doesn't matter anymore because they are fully traitor now. Some of them work for Abaddon. We see that in the Arcs of Omen, where Abaddon has Alpha Legion infiltrators loyal to him in order to spy on those lieutenants he didn't really trust as much. But oddly enough, they also showed up during the battle for the Rock to fight against Vashtor on the side of Be'lakor along with word bearers. They're also stated in the book Lords of Silence to have answered Abaddon's calls for another Black Crusade, for forces of the Traitor Legions to flock to his banner. They were said to show up to the muster in quote-unquote Ophidian-looking ships, Ophidian meaning serpent-looking, and were at a distance from all the other traitor ships because the other legions do not trust them, a reputation they haven't shaken in 10,000 years. More than anything, they're like the Iron Warriors in that they don't really care much for chaos, but they use it as a tool where necessary to fight against the Imperium. They're known to carve symbols into the walls of underhives where they know certain Space Marine chapters get their recruits from in order to hypnotize them and give them sleeper words and sleeper directives very subtly that they can activate when the time comes hundreds of years down the line. Some of the Alpha Legion in the book Sons of the Hydra and Long Games at Charcaris destroyed 4 Ultramarine successor chapters with methods like this. Some of them are in the Eye of Terror and bump elbows with the other legions, but more than anything, they're active in the Galactic East and make life there a living hell for other Space Marine chapters. Honestly, I think they probably had something to do with the Badab War kicking off. I'd like to think so anyway. The reason I call this group the quote-unquote Old Alpha Legion, the one that just springs up every now and again to say, haha, we had a plot the whole time, haha, we were infiltrating this, that, and the third, haha, I wasn't a loyalist, I was Alfarius the whole time, is because in the old lore, like from the Forge World books, or even before they really got a spotlight in the Horus Heresy, this is what they were known to be. This was always the perception. They were a smaller legion in the backline, narratively speaking, but now they have taken on many different roles in recent years. Honestly, I liked this version of the Alpha Legion. I thought even though it lacked some depth, it was a lot of fun. It was really interesting to see what they would come up with, and they just had a really menacing, smug air about them that I thought was cool. Like, I thought this was a good way to go, but it's only one of 4 real groups that are more or less active. The next group to really come up is a new one, just in M42, and is another Traitor cell. This one only really shows up in the new book, Harrowmaster by Mike Brooks, and I think it's got some potential to play a role in my theory, that being the coming Alpha Legion Civil War I believe will happen eventually. Now, these guys mostly aren't Heresy-era Marines, funnily enough. They're actually newer people recruited by other Space Marine chapters, yet sort of snatched by the Alpha Legion, as happened with their leader, Solomon Akura. This younger generation of Marines don't really care much for the older conventions of the Legion. When they meet up in their secret meeting room in a secret base in a secret asteroid inside Imperial space, they actually laugh at one of the members who introduces himself with the phrase, "I am Alfarius." The reason they're meeting is because they, as the Alpha Legion, need to discuss what to do about the new Primaris. They recently encountered them, they see that they're very powerful, and need to make a game plan on what to do. It's in this meeting, Solomon says, hey, whatever the original plans for the Legion were by the twins no longer matters, we need to forge our own path. And a fun aside here, he actually says in his own words when he introduces himself, I am not Alfarius. That's just something I find fun. The faction he now leads is called the Ghost Legion. They look to their past to get a new name to operate under for their new directed mission of bringing down the Imperium. They don't worship chaos, but they use it as a tool wherever it's needed. Now, granted, Harrowmaster is the first book this group has ever shown up in, and I feel like they probably will show up in maybe future Mike Brooks books. Oh, that's clunky. Well, his writings. So he unifies the group with this new mission and legitimizes his rule as the de facto leader of the Ghost Legion by, through a long con plot, getting from the Inquisition the head of Alfarius's Pale Spear. The Inquisitor who tried to kill him still has the haft, but he does have the head of the spear, so that does give him some legitimacy. Now I'm gonna go off on a bit of a side tangent here and say that Harrowmaster is what I like to call an OC book, which means that it feels less like a proper Black Library novel that would maybe advance the plot or rely on a lot of pre-existing material, and more like the author just sort of having fun and messing around with their OCs. It's why in this book, Solomon Akura comes off as so charming. He has such a great relationship with his psyker, who has like blue-green dyed dreadlocks and shaved on one side hair, and how they have a Tech Magos who wears robes in the Alpha Legion colors, and how they don't have slaves, they have serfs who are loyal to their cause, everyone gets along, things go really well. Just, it almost seems a little bit close to Mary Sue, but I think that's too harsh, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I thought the book was pretty fun, and Furthermore, the Black Legion series, you know, Talon of Horus, Black Legion, by Aaron Dembski-Bowden, also falls into this category of quote-unquote OC books. It feels like the author's just messing around and having fun with their character. And when they do this, some of their own personal ideals can come out more, some of their opinions on the universe and on characters. Aaron Dembski-Bowden has been called the quintessential quote-unquote chaos thumper author, that being someone who sides with chaos as opposed to the Imperium. And Mike Brooks is a very leftist person. We can see this on his Twitter. You know, if you go and like search on his Twitter, he really doesn't like the Imperium all that much. And listen, it's fine. I have a lot of friends who are very leftist. I have friends who are pretty right-wing. I get along with everyone on the political spectrum. You know, I'm slick like that. But yeah, Solomon as a character and the Ghost Legion as a concept, it kind of strikes me as his way of saying, hey, the Imperium sucks, but I'm not a chaos thumper. Ooh, we got this totally secular group of guys who are all super charming, and they get along with their psychers and their human counterparts, and they're all really intelligent, and they outsmart this Inquisitor. They're so cool and personable. Listen, the characters are really fun, and you can actually see fans latching onto Solomon as a character. I've seen a fair bit of fan art on Twitter. I got some mutuals on Twitter who really like him. And hey, that's fine. I think he's pretty cool. And yeah, that's that for the Traitor portion of the Legion. You know, they're either in the Eye of Terror, working with Abaddon or with certain demons, or they're mucking around in the Galactic East, just making life hell for Ultramarine successors. They're just doing Alpha Legion things. Or there is the new Ghost Legion that is very focused and is just really getting started. We're gonna see what happens with them. But that's only half of the story. There's two more large, distinct groups of Alpha Legion who we really need to talk about, and they're both loyalist or at least partially loyalist. This is where it gets interesting, so buckle up.